Today, we're diving into something called the bystander effect. It's this chilling idea that questions what we do when we're in a crowd and something bad happens. But here's the thing. What if the story we've all been told about it isn't the whole truth?
It all kicked off back in 1964 with a story that just shocked the world. It was the murder of a young woman, Kitty Genovese. And the story that spread, well, it was terrifying. The dozens of people heard or saw her being attacked and did absolutely nothing. This one horrifying event became the poster child for a whole new field of psychology.
So that's the big question, right? The one that haunted everybody. Are we just uncaring, apathetic, or is there something else going on? Something deep in our psychology that just paralyzes us when we're part of a group? Well, psychologists, of course, they had to figure this out. They gave this whole thing a name and started to really pick apart the forces that can make us freeze up in a moment of crisis. And this is the core idea they came up with, the bystander effect. You know, it's a total paradox. The more people there are who could help, the less likely it is that any single one of them actually will. It's like the responsibility just dissolves into thin air. So why? Why does this happen? Researchers basically boiled it down to two main culprits. The first is called pluralistic ignorance, which is just a fancy way of saying, well, nobody else looks worried, so I guess this isn't a real emergency. And the second is diffusion of responsibility. That's that little voice in your head that says, oh, I'm sure someone else is going to call for help. And it turns out, deciding to help isn't just one simple choice. Psychologists figured out it's actually a 5-step process. And a breakdown at any single one of these steps means no help is given. You have to notice it, realize it's serious, feel like it's your job to help, and so on. This next bit perfectly shows that second step in action, interpretation. In this classic experiment, they had smoke start filling a room. When someone was in there alone, they saw the smoke, thought fire, and reported it in about 5 seconds. But, and this is wild, when they were in a room with other people who were just acting passive, it took them 4 times longer to react, if they even reacted at all. They just kind of looked at each other, took their cues from the group, and collectively decided it was probably fine. Okay, so we've got this idea that being in a group can make us hesitate. But it's not always so cut and dry. It turns out there are specific things that can make us way more or way less likely to jump in.
Get this. Just look at these numbers. They're from a study where people saw a man and a woman fighting. When the woman yelled, "Get away, I don't know you," 2/3 of the people watching stepped in. But when she yelled, "Get away, I don't know why I married you," the number of people who helped, it plummeted. Less than 1 in 5. That ambiguity, that uncertainty, it's an absolute paralysis button.
And believe it or not, it gets even more complicated. We're more likely to act if we're with our friends. And here's a surprising one. We're actually more likely to step in when a situation is clearly dangerous, probably because there's no room for misinterpretation. And finally, we tend to help people we think are like us, part of our in-group, like fans of the same sports team. So for decades, this was the story, a pretty bleak picture of how we act in crowds, right? But what if it's not that simple? What if all that classic research, which was mostly done in sterile labs, completely missed what happens out here, in the real world? And you know what? Modern researchers started asking that exact same question. And when they stopped looking at lab studies and started looking at real-world data, the answer they found was a big, resounding no. Take a look at this number, 91%. That is the percentage of real-life public fights captured on hundreds of hours of CCTV footage from all over the world, where at least one person stepped in to help. Let me say that again. In over 9 out of 10 cases, someone does something. So here's the absolute game changer. The new evidence completely flips the old theory on its head. The old idea was more people means less help. The new evidence says more people actually means you're more likely to get help. Sure, the chance that you specifically will act might go down, but the chance that someone will act actually goes up. A crowd can be a source of safety, not apathy. Oh, and that original story about Kitty Genovese, the one that started this whole thing? Well, decades later, investigations, including one by the New York Times, the paper that first broke the story, found that the original report was just wrong, grossly exaggerated. There weren't 38 silent witnesses, the real number was way smaller, some people only heard a scream, and somebody did call the police. The founding myth was just that, a myth. So, this is actually amazing news, right? It means we aren't doomed to stand by and do nothing. Deep down, we are helpers. But those psychological hurdles we talked about, like the diffusion of responsibility,
they're still real. So the real question becomes, how do we jump over them when it really counts?
Luckily, the research gives us a clear playbook. First, you have to break that diffusion of responsibility. So point to a specific person. You, in the blue shirt, call 911. Give them a direct task. Second, get rid of any ambiguity. Yell, "I need help, this is an emergency." And third, explain why. One study found that asking for a dime worked about a third of the time, but saying, "Can I have a dime? My wallet was stolen," that works 72% of the time. Giving a reason makes the need real.
You see, the story of the bystander effect isn't really about apathy. It's about misinterpretation. It's about uncertainty. People want to help. They just have to break through that initial fog. So now you know the science, now you have the tools to be the one who acts. The only question left is, what will you do?